This is just a quick review about how to set up a Fresnel or a fall-off shader using Arnold shaders and an Arnold tool, a node here called the AI facing ratio node. So we're trying to achieve something like this where the color is influenced by the orientation of the surface relative to the camera that we're looking at it through. So for example, if I were to describe this one, it is blue on the faces that are turning away from the camera view, and it is red in the areas that are more facing towards the camera, and it's falling off between those two colors in the regions in between. So it's only going to be perfectly blue where the camera, or the surface normal is at 90 degrees to the camera normal, or another way of saying the camera angle of view. So where the camera angle of view intersects with the face normal that's at 90 degrees or perpendicular to it, then we'll get the blue color. And where it is the same angle, camera normal and surface normal, then we will get the red color. And that's why it's called facing ratio, this node we're going to use, the degree to which the surface normals are facing the camera. Okay, so let's just set this up. Again, I'll just put a new material on here. Use the Arnold materials, of course. Just map this one out. Oops. Okay, so let me just make sure. Yep, so we're back to normal here. And I'll turn off my render preview. And there are a couple of nodes that we want to use. The first one is just a ramp texture, so it doesn't have any of the projection nodes attached to it that the other types of ramps do. And we want to, now normally we would use the place 2D texture node to figure out how to place this ramp on the surface, but we're going to replace this with something else. We're just going to delete that, and instead we're going to make something called, I'm just going to search for facing ratio, and we get AI facing ratio. Now there is another node in Maya that can do the same thing, and you may see reference to this. It's called the sampler info node, and it's a little hard to see here, but the first attribute that it can collect, so it's sampling the scene and it's collecting information about the facing ratio of the camera normal versus surface normals. So you can actually use the sampler info node in place of the AI facing ratio node, but for now we're just going to stick to Arnold tools. So if we look in here, we've got a bias and a gain. So remember, bias is going to lean towards one side or another. In this case, it would be the normals facing away or towards the camera, but right now it's at 0.5, so it's right in the middle, and then the gain would be a multiplier. However, we're going to do a lot of that work with this ramp. So we're going to connect the out value of the facing ratio. I'm going to open up this UV coordinate attribute on the ramp, and we're going to hook up facing ratio out value to V chord on the ramp. And then we'll take, for now, just the out color of the ramp and hook that up to the base color of our shader. So now if we look, it's a little harder to see here because it's not much has changed. So to make it a little more obvious, I'll change the black color to something bright like green, so now you can see that a little more closely. And then the middle color will change to a contrasting color like red or orange or something like this. So this side of the ramp, the right side, is put on the surface in the areas that are facing the camera, and the green parts are put on the parts of the surface facing away from the camera. Now you can do this, use this for a lot of things. So for example, I could pipe the out color into emission color, and then I just have to make sure I turn up emission weight. So we can get something glowing like this with different colors. So we can use this for, you know, like a scanning electron micrograph image where the parts facing towards the camera are usually kind of a mid to dark gray, so we could change this orange, something like a mid gray, and then the green we could change to a white. So right now the fall off is linear. I can make this smooth to change this. I can pull in the white values. Now it doesn't quite look right like a scanning EM because it shouldn't have a specular on here, so we can go in here and turn specularity off. And we could even add a bump map. The easiest way to do this is to choose some sort of noisy texture. I'll use the AI noise. And if we want to hook this up into the bump map, we can select the surface shader, and then here under geometry, just middle mouse drag the noise onto the bump mapping, and it should make the connection for you. If it doesn't, it's because it doesn't know how to hook up the out value of AI noise. So what it threw us this, not an error, but it threw up the connection editor because it didn't know how to hook up out color to bump value here, because bump value just is this green dot, so it's a single channel. Out color is this red dot, it's a triple channel, so we just want to hook up out color R or something to bump value. Now the bump value is always going to be way too high at 1, so we're going to reduce this to 0.1, so that's in the bump 2D node that sits in between the noise and the shader. If we go into this noise node, the scale value is too high. Well, for the AI noise, we want to make it a higher scale to get a smaller bump. So I'm just changing it to 10 in scale. And then so you can see that it gives you a nice bump, and that fall off proceeds throughout and takes into account the bump as well. You could even make this, that's maybe a little too tight. When it's really tight, then there's so many perturbations of the surface that we don't really see that fall off anymore. Something like this. Just adding a bit of noise in the ramp to see what this does. Anyway, this is the idea of what the fall off map, or sorry, the Fresnel shader setup does for us. Now this noise in the ramp is messing things up. It simply allows you to choose the edges of objects that are facing away from the camera and apply some sort of texture differently to the surface. Anyway, hope you find it useful.